right, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday morning. We're halfway through another powerful week, and I can tell by the feedback we are enjoying these nuggets from our two-day exchange event. And so this morning, I continue talking about focus. And you've heard me talk a little about it yesterday. I'm going to continue talking about today, and I'm just going to say even right now before it even begins. Focus is absolutely key. I talk about how I protect my focus, why it's so valuable, why I was trained in the analogy of why we want to protect our focus, and what you should be keeping in your mind about how important your focus is, and do you have enough value on your focus? And then what do we do when people try to break your focus? I give a huge quote. I'm going to tell you up front, a very high octane quote today about the people who try to break your focus. And I take focus very, very seriously. That's why I'm so passionate about it. So I want you to really to take this heat. I want you really to take this in today about the power of focus. I really want you to think about it in your life, because you know what? We're focusing on something, but the key you got to ask yourself is, are you focusing on the things that are going to help you get where it is you say you want to go? The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is focus. So listen very closely today. Focus on this training. It'll create a lot of value. It takes practice, I understand, but this is where it begins. So let's join me now back in the two-day exchange event talking about focus. So think about that. Do you protect your focus? I protect my focus like most of you would probably protect a briefcase with $1 million cash in it. Now I know analogies are great, but in order for you to really get them, you got to really picture them for a moment. Like that chocolate cake deal, I could have passed that up and you go, oh, that's chocolate cake, I get it. But I showed you. You started to focus on it. Your desire got bigger for you. Some of you even began to taste it. And your discipline to be healthy would have went right out the door. Kobe was already on it. He's like, I'm eating the chocolate cake. Where's it at, you know? I tripped one for him. But see, we got to protect our focus. So think about this for a moment. Let's say I had a briefcase with $1 million cash in it. It was a briefcase and it was sitting right here. And you think, man, you'd be thinking the whole time. If it had been sitting here all morning already, you'd be thinking, why does that briefcase is there? And he told us it had $1 million cash in it. I wonder if that's true. And if it is, why would he have a briefcase here with $1 million cash in it? But you don't have to guess, because actually I didn't tell you. This is a glass briefcase, so you can see right through it. So then you'd be thinking, man, that looks like a lot of money. I wonder if it's really solid. I wonder if he just has like paper on the inside, $100 bills on the outside. And if he has why? Does he have like security or something around? Or why? All these things will be going through your mind. I can tell you this. If I had a briefcase with $1 million cash sitting on that table, most of you would not have heard a single word that I've said for the last few moments this morning. You want to know why? Because most of us focus on that versus the things that we can do to move ourselves forward. And focusing on that is not going to help you get it, because you got to back off of it. Say, where am I going to build my desire? How can I be disciplined to have that? Now, what if I told you this? What if I kind of ramped it up a little bit? You see the briefcase sitting there, and I said, you know what? Sometime between today and tomorrow, I'm going to give one of you that briefcase. That would be it. You'd be done. I'd just scramble your brain. That would be it. You would not hear a single word I said for the next 2 days. You'd be hearing like, wah, 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 wah. The only thing you'd be thinking about is like, how can I get that briefcase? How's he going to pick? And I start carrying it around with me. You know, halfway through today, I start carrying it around. And you're like, ah, is he going to give it today? Is he going to wait till tomorrow? And I walk over here and like, ah. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, it's about 50 people here. It's a 1 in 50 chance of being a millionaire. That's a pretty good statistic for most people. I come over here, I'm like, ah, no, and I'm like, oh, Todd. He's just like, yes. Now, Todd's going to be celebrating, and Todd, you just made 49 enemies because they all hate your guts now. Okay? Like, what's Todd? I think Keith's met Todd before. I think he likes him more than everybody else. What's up? I think Todd does roofing and he's in construction. Maybe that connection there, you know. I think that's maybe why he got it. You may be making up all these stories about me. You'd be pissed off at me. You'd be pissed off at Todd. Like, why didn't I get the $1 million? And that'd be you'd just go nuts. You probably would walk out when it was over. I'm not staying in if I don't get it, because there's nothing else here worth of value. That's how we'd act. Now, I could teach on that for the rest of the 2 days. Just that I could teach on forever. But now, Todd, if I really handed you that briefcase with $1 million cash in it, what's the first thing you're going to do? Exactly. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your arms around it, and you're going to scan the group. Which among you is going to be the first person to try to take it from me? Now, Todd's not the smallest guy, but I can promise you, some of us would still try to take it from him. And we would run the odds on it. I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. It's worth $1 million. But he's going to wrap his arms around it, right? He's going to scan and go, which among you is going to attempt to break my focus? And that's how he's going to act. Now, if I told Todd, let's role play this a little bit later in the evening when I gave it to you. So the banks are already closed. And I just said, Todd, it's your money. All you have to do is get it into your bank account. Tomorrow morning, it's yours. But now you got like all night, you got to do something with this, right? So he's thinking, man, I gotta protect this. You know, Tulsa's a pretty safe city, but I don't know if I'm gonna walk outside with a glass briefcase. You maybe would try to protect it, put something on it. You probably would even call security, like you said. You just said it. You said security. I'd call somebody. You get your cell phone out and hire somebody. You may call an armored car. You may call a police escort. You may call a helicopter to take you from here to wherever. You say, Keith, that sounds crazy. No, it's not. He would easily spend $100,000 of that $1 million to make sure he got it into his bank account safely tomorrow morning, and he would do everything he could to make sure none of you touched it. That's how I treat my focus. I wrap my arms around it. I look around in my life and say, which among you, who among you is going to try to break my focus? And I'm going to do everything I can. I got security. I got protection. I've got covering over me. I've got things. I got helicopters. I got police experts. I got all kinds of protocol in my life to keep you from breaking my focus. See, that's not how most of us look at our focus, though. Because, see, with protected focus like that, because that focus will build your desire, the desire will build your discipline, with that kind of focus, you'll generate briefcases of $1 million, not just one. But most of us get stuck on the one thing, and we don't protect our focus. When we don't protect our focus, we have no desire, we have no discipline. Are y'all catching the dots here, yes or no? How many people notice that I'm not protecting focus? Yeah, most of us, including myself, and I'm still learning how to protect it more. Now, I put it out very strongly so people get it. That doesn't mean don't care. It's like, I'm going to give you one more quote. Y'all want a very high-octane quote that normally, sometimes I'd say and I don't say, but I'll give it to you if you can take it, yes or no? I always like to ask permission to be high-octane first, because this is a pretty big time quote, and then I'll explain it, but it's around focus. I think it'll serve you. Here it is. Anyone who attempts to break your focus, is an enemy. Anyone who attempts to break your focus is an enemy. Now, go ahead and finish typing it and writing it, and I'll come back to it in just a second.
Yeah. He keeps doing this.
Oh, he's elbowing you? Oh, yeah. This is good for you. Yeah. We get a lot of that in our events. Hey, this is really good for you. You need to be listening right now. Right. We have that often. Anyone who attempts to break your focus is an enemy. Now, you got to think about that. Now, people always go, well, Keith, what about my family, my kids? No, your family, your kids, they're part of your focus. It's not like when I walk home and my 2.5-year-old Benai comes up and says, Daddy, I'm like, get back, boy, you're breaking my focus. Get that enemy away from me. That's not what I'm talking about, I got to change some of what I'm talking about now. My wife walked in, so she's going to sit in a few sessions, so now I got a little extra nerves going on. I can make sure, because now, remember I told you? I was telling him earlier that I haven't arrived. And I said if my wife was here, she would second and third that a few times. Thank you for not yelling yes out really loud right then. Thank you. So I'm not talking about your kids and your family or your spouse. They should be on the focus target with you. Do you know what I'm talking about? What I'm talking about is people that say, you know what, that can't be done. Or, you know what, you're crazy. Or that's way too big. Or, you need to doubt that. Or try to make you attack your belief. Anybody who tries to attack your belief or break your focus about what's possible, what you're capable of doing, or what you could be doing, they're an enemy. I don't let anybody talk with me. The only conversations I have with people is how something could work. You know what I've learned in my experience, though, is I've met many people who will have 3, 4, 5-hour conversations with me about how something cannot work. But I can barely get them to have a 15-minute conversation with me about how something could work. We only have could work conversations here. People already know that about me. They're not going to tell me. They will not come to me with a conversation about how something cannot work. Sometimes that drives people crazy, but that's okay. Because most people want to create the results that we're creating. But in order to create those results, you've got to go to how could it work, not why it's not working. So I always tell people, I'm not going to have a conversation why it can't work. Let's only talk about how it could work. And if how it could work isn't something that we'd like to do, then we won't do it. So it's not that there's always a solution that we can do right then in a moment, but we say, well, how could it work? Well, Keith, it could work if you took $10 million and did this with it. Okay, well, I'm not prepared to do that. Okay, so we won't do it then. So there's always a way that it could work. Then we just decide if that's what we want to do or not. And if it's not, then we'd go do something else in the meantime. But it's a way more valuable conversation than how it can't work or this can't work or that. Those type of conversations, those kind of people, they're an enemy. So you want to guard yourself from them. I didn't say you have to necessarily kick them out of your life. I said you got to protect yourself from them. We're talking about foundation. I'm going to draw it out here in a few moments. And people go, Keith, some of these people are my family. Or they're my very close friends, or my in-laws or something like that. What do we do? Well, here's what I always tell people. You may have to let people into your house, but that doesn't mean you have to let them into your foundation. Does that make sense? You may have to let them into your house, but it doesn't mean you have to let them into your foundation. It's not like I say, talk to the hand, Kathy. I'm not rude. We always walk with love and compassion. But what I'm saying is, I'll allow anybody to speak to me. I'll allow anyone to speak to me. But I allow very few to speak into me or over me. See the difference? See, I'll allow anybody to have a conversation with me. I'll let people in my house. You're in my house right now. Doesn't mean I'm going to let you into my foundation. You can walk tomorrow and say, you know what, Keith? This event really stunk. Mentorfish is stupid. And I'm like, hey, great, wonderful. Have a great day. Glad you came out. It ain't going to mean a difference to me. It's going to roll off my back just like water will roll off a duck's back because I protect my foundation. Does that make sense? I'm going to do what I feel called to do. I'm going to do what I believe is possible, irrelevant of what anybody else thinks about it or has anything to say about it. Because I'm going to protect my focus. I'm going to protect my foundation. So think about that. Who in your life puts doubt in you or tries to pull you down or tries to dilute you? You want to put some protocol or protection in place from that influence. So they don't influence you, you can influence them. See the difference? And when things happen, it's not that you can't go and do it, but I govern, and it takes time to transition into sometimes, but I govern where I bring my attention to something. Does that make sense? Because how many times you're in the middle of something maybe creative, or you got a little flow going, or a little momentum going, all of a sudden one thing happens, boom, it's all blown up, and you can't get it back. So I'm going to finish what I'm doing, and then go back and do whatever I need to do later on that needs my attention. Now, if there's an emergency, there's always exceptions to it, but then I do the exception, and I get right back on it, and I don't make the exception the normal. Make sense? Very good aha. Protect our focus. We're going to talk more and more how we can do that as we spend time together today and tomorrow. All right, we've got to protect our focus like a briefcase with $1 million cash in it. We've got to keep the enemies out of our way so we can get to where it is that we're focused on getting, which I know is your greatness. This is what this entire community is about. How do you live in the greatness that you were designed to have? Because we all have it. You can't walk towards it. You can only walk away from it, all right? Here we go, article. Here's the headline. Bush parachutes for his 80th birthday. Former President George H.W. Bush celebrated his 80th birthday by parachuting and landing at his presidential library. Reading the article about former President George H.W. Bush parachuting on his birthday reminded me of a wonderful occasion when some friends and I had lunch with him in Tampa, Florida. During our time together, we asked what he perceived to be the most difficult problems facing the United States today. I was expecting him to give an economic or military answer. Instead, the president replied, "The most serious problem facing America today is the decline of the traditional family. I personally believe that one of the things that has contributed to the decline is that so many couples get too busy. Figuratively, they can only parachute into each other's lives for meals, social events, and occasional romance. Over time, the closeness and the intimacy that they once shared fades away like the paint on a sun-scorched building. Yet when most achievers come to the sunset of their lives, it's not their careers, but rather their relationships with spouses and children that seem to matter most to them. For instance, famous explorer Admiral Richard Byrd wrote this on his deathbed: "At the end of life, the only thing that really matters is family. Anything and everything else is insustainable." Billy Graham once said, "I made a big mistake. I left my wife and family too much. If I could do it again, I would spend more time with them." Former President Jimmy Carter concurs, "My first loyalty is and will always be family." Zig Ziglar believes that the secret to longevity of a marriage is this: believe that the love and the romance will be alive as long as the marriage exists, and that the marriage will exist as long as you do. Great marriages and families don't just happen. It takes commitment, understanding, and patience. However, the benefits are well worth the effort. Best-selling author Gary Smalley believes another key ingredient for a loving and lasting marriage is honor. He states, "Honor basically means to attach a high value, worth, or importance to a person. If your spouse feels less important than other people, or your vacation, or your activities, then you're not honoring him or her as the most important person in your life. My wife is worth more to me than anything on this earth, and she knows it." Avril Schuler believes that this mindset is a key to the strength and happiness of her marriage to Dr. Robert Schuler. Our slogan is that together we are a great team. If we are not experiencing the relationship that you desire at home, I would suggest doing what best-selling author Randy Gibbs recommends. Decide what each of you must be and do in order to have what you want. The most serious problem facing America is the decline of the traditional family. George H.W. Bush. Here's the PowerPoint question for today. How can you improve your relationship with your spouse? That's a very, very, very valuable question. Our spouses should be the most important relationship in our life. That's one of the reasons why, I only travel twice a month. Most of you know that I have a system and a structure that I use, a protocol that protects me from being gone too much. There was a season in my life where I was gone too much. And now I only travel twice a month because I want to be with my wife. I want to be with my family. Think about that. Do you hold your wife or your spouse at the same level as anything else in your life? And if you are, you're making a mistake. You got to have her or him at a higher level than the other things in your life so they can see and sense the value that they have in your life. Because when they feel honored, everything in that relationship can shift. Most struggles in relationships happen, and I agree, happen from a place of somebody not feeling valued or not feeling honored. Think about that in your relationship today and see what it is you can do to bring more honor into your marriage, into your family. I look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk again soon. God bless you.